What's up, guys? What's up, guys? Lolo here from HyperlinkCentral.com today to do a rumor roundup of the second generation iPad. So, for those of you who don't know, Apple is holding an event on March 2nd where they're going to be announcing the second generation iPad. They're usually more secretive, but this one's painfully obvious because we have a number 2 for the date and an iPad peeking out from the invitation. So, I find that super probable. So let's talk about what the second generation iPad will have, definitely. So it will have a front-facing camera. So the iPhone 4 and the iPod Touch 4th generation released last year had a feature called FaceTime where you could video call to another iPhone originally, an iPhone to an iPod Touch, then iPhone to iPod Touch, iPhone to Mac, and vice versa. And they've recently actually released a full version of FaceTime for Mac, so they've really been advertising it lately, and adding a front-facing camera with the ability to FaceTime is definitely a probable thing that we'll see in the next iPad. So this one isn't as big, but I see it as it's going to be there definitely because it was in the last devices. So split volume button. So for those of you who don't know, the last iPad, which is probably the one in this picture, but I'll get to that later, had one kind of piece of material where you would press on one end or the other to change the volume coming out of the speakers of your device. Now that was actually on older iPhones and iPod Touches, and that could be very annoying because you could accidentally hit volume down, meaning to hit volume up. So they actually made them two separate buttons on the iPhone 4 and the iPod Touch 4. So I definitely think that this is a very useful feature that they could add to the iPad too. So something else, this one's also very, very, very possible that they're going to make the device thinner. So it's already a thin device, so I don't see this as super, super probable, but it's still really probable because Apple is very, very big on making their devices thinner. So this one's probably going to happen, and it did happen until the device is released in 2010. So lastly, this one isn't as probable due to the screen size of the iPad, but a Retina display. So for those of you who don't know, a Retina display is a digital screen on computers, well, on Apple's iDevices, that basically has enough pixels per inch where you can't tell that it's an LCD or LED screen, where it looks like real life to you. So that's actually very, very high quality technology. The screen is very, very gorgeous on the current devices, and if they could add that to the iPad, it would be great, but I'm not too sure how easy it is with the 9.7-inch screen to deal with. So let's talk about a few more rumors. For those of you who know, Apple released a Verizon iPhone 4 this February, so, well, a few weeks earlier this month, really, and they have no reason not to add the CDMA, which is the technology of cellular phone technology in which you don't use a SIM card. So they have no reason not to add this to the iPad. They currently have an iPad 3G that is GSM only, and they're probably going to add a Verizon capable CDMA version. And if they could make this compatible with some CDMA using carriers in other countries, that would be really great. And the iPhone 4 and Verizon actually confirmed the ability to use GSM and CDMA. So it would be cool if this device also took advantage of that, and they wouldn't have to make a separate device. So for those of you who wanted to use GSM or couldn't use CDMA, you could. But for those of you who wanted to use, could and wanted to use CDMA, you would be able to. So that'd be a nice feature to add. A bit on the processor and general speed. The current iPad, I believe, has 256 megabytes of RAM. So if they were to up that to 512, like the 4th generation iPhone and iPod Touch, or even, the newer, or instead of 512 megabytes, but rather 1 gigabyte of RAM, because this is a much more capable, larger device. So that would be really, really nice if they were able to add that. So that would be really, really cool. So let's move on to the picture here that we see on the invitation. So this is the only Apple confirmed image right here. So let's take a look at what we don't see. Since the iPad already resembles a lot like an iPod Touch, we expect this one to resemble it too by having a front-facing camera somewhere in the middle of the screen. So that would be somewhere over here, or rather somewhere over here, but it's just about covered by this March 2nd. So this could very well be a second generation iPad. It could also be a second generation iPad because we don't see the side or the top of the device, we only see the front. So this gives us no idea on how thick the device is, and knowing Apple's priorities, they're probably going to make the device thinner. Now, also, it is very probable that this is not a second generation device due to the fact that it does not have split volume buttons. So I did mention that this is going to be definitely on this device, and since, as you guys could see, and I've demonstrated this before, this invitation features an iPad without split volume buttons, it more or less is not going to be there because we can't really confirm that there is a front-facing camera behind this calendar, and we can't really confirm that this is a thinner device, but we can confirm that these are split volume buttons, and these are not split volume buttons, sorry, and because of that, this is most probably a first generation device, and some other pictures I have later on might prove in a lot of ways that this could not be a second generation device. Also, it could be a second generation device because it doesn't show a few apps hidden here. So for those of you who don't know, iOS 4.3 beta was actually hacked into, well, not really hacked into, but one developer looked inside the system files and actually found a photo booth app. So I'm not too sure whether or not that's going to be there because it is still beta firmware, but that would be really cool. So let's go ahead and minimize this and head over to the other picture we have here. Now this is probably the most improbable mock-up of an Apple device I've ever seen. So I'm only showing this due to the fact that this is a very relevant image popping up in Google search for iPad 2. So let's talk about why this is not a second generation iPad, because we have no evidence that it is, but we can really talk about how it isn't. That's our strongest point. First of all, it says iPad 2 on it, and Apple has never listed the name of the device. They've always just said iPad or iPhone or iPod Touch. They're not going to put iPad 2 on it, nor are they probably going to call it iPad 2. Secondly, this camera here looks way too small for them to put on. They have the technology to put a nice big 5 megapixel camera, and they have no reason not to. Second of all, we have this kind of curved design running around the side, which has been a feature eliminated in the iPhone 4 and the first generation iPad, so they have no reason to bring that back because probably that'll make the device somewhat thicker. And lastly, we can see that there is this little black dot here is a generation, not a generation, but rather a gigabyte amount symbol, and they got rid of that in the iPhone 4 and iPod Touch 4th generation, so they are not going to bring that to their new iPad. So this one I find super improbable. I just want to show you guys that it's there because it has popped up a lot, and I want to show you guys why this one is probably not true. So this one's actually very interesting. This is actually a case made for this device, so let's put them side by side. So you can see the volume rocker here, you can see the back camera, you can see the cutout speakers here, and well, something in the front to protect the home button, and looks like something for the microphone. So something for a microphone I find probable. Here it looks like there's a bit of material to separate the volume, the mute switch or screen orientation 4.3 and the volume rocker. The volume rocker is not split, so I don't find this possible. So this is generally a case that I don't see will work for our newer device. So I'm going to go ahead and minimize both of these because the last device is proven to be improbable, and this will probably not work for the device because it's probably going to be thinner, and this looks like a case that could fit a first generation iPad. Now lastly, these two images that I have here are probably the most probable ones that we have seen the entire time. The most trustworthy ones beside the original calendar. So this is from 95 Mac, and they're already a very, very trusted Apple source. So let's take a look at this image here. So we have two facing back-to-back pictures. This has a front camera. Now this is actually a very small front camera, but it's very, very possibly there. And this is actually the bezel of a second generation device. I find this very, very probable because we have seen leaked bezels of the Verizon iPhone, and that actually came to be. So this device does have a front-facing camera. Not really too impressed with the size of it because not too large, and generally when it's a bigger camera, it's higher quality. So I'm not too sure about that, but this picture over here seems to have a bigger camera, so I'm guessing there's just a smaller hole on the top for a bigger camera in the back, but it doesn't make much sense. But this looks like, from the look of these kind of black lines here and the navy blue that we see over here, it looks more like a protective layer or something that would hold the circuit board behind the original bezel, which is a white one for a white front iPad. So this actually seems very probable. We can see the home button, the front camera, and there's really nothing to put off against this. So this is a very, very probable design that we're going to see over here. So you guys should look out for this. And also, let's just round up what we're going to see. A front camera similar to this one. We are going to see split volume buttons, possibly a retina display, and possibly, but most probably, a thinner device. So thanks for watching. I hope these features come to the device and much more, because I never expect everything from Apple. Thanks for watching, guys.